Hi, this is Mrs. Frenzel, and this is the second part of the video tutorials on photos. In this video, we'll learn more about the information pane and we'll actually start editing and enhancing photos. We learned in the first video that to open the information pane, you can either click on the little I button in the top right corner, or you can press Command I. In the information panel, you can see which camera was used to take the shot, what type of lens was used, the date and time the photo was shot, the number that was assigned to that photo by the camera, the resolution of the shot expressed in pixels for width and height, the file size, the f-stop, and the shutter speed. You can also add additional information for your picture, including a title and description, faces in the picture, a place the picture was taken, and keywords. These are all tags that are going to help you sort and search for or locate pictures in the future. So for this shot, I typed in cross country for my title, first meet of the year as my description, Syracuse for a keyword. I added a name for one of the athletes, and then I went ahead and assigned a place to the places option, and all you need to do is type in the city and state and you'll get a drop down list and you can choose, and when you make that choice it'll give you the map with a pinpoint. Just remember that all the tags that you're entering now will help you locate these pictures later on and create albums. Now we'll move on to editing and enhancing your photos. The nice thing about this program is that it does non-destructive editing, and this means that you can always go back to your edit screen at a later date and revert back to your original photo. So you'll never degrade the quality of your photo as you apply successive edits. You can always go back to the original. You'll be performing these edits with me, so be sure to stop and start the video as needed. The first photo you need is number 6761. The first thing you'll notice is there are a bunch of names that it wants to identify, and that's pretty distracting. So what you can do is go to View in your menu bar and click on Hide Face Names. Now let's press the Return key to bring up your Tools panel, and just press on the Filter button. I want to show you something about non-destructive editing. You can apply any filter, and when you change your mind, you can always click the button that says Revert Back to Original. Another thing you can do if you want to see quickly the before and after effect of the shot is simply press the M key. Now let's move on to our first tool in the panel, which is the Enhance tool. You'll need photo number 6761. And all it does is use some predefined operations to adjust a photo's exposure and colors. You have no control over it. It's something that's quick and easy to use, although sometimes you don't get the result you like. So you just click on the Enhance tool. If you'd like to see the adjustments that the computer made, you can click on the Adjust button, and you will notice the different adjustments it made to the light category for exposure, highlight, shadows, brightness, and contrast. Now let's move on to the next tool, which is Rotate, and you can choose any photo you want, and all this tool's going to do is rotate your photo by 90 degrees with each click in a counterclockwise direction. Now you'll need photo number 9009. Remember to press Command F to get to the search bar, and we'll be working with the Crop tool. There are 4 reasons why you might want to crop a photo. Probably the most important is you need to improve its composition. Maybe you need to use the rule of thirds, or maybe change the photo's shape so that it fits in a certain frame or display. Maybe you accidentally got your finger in front of the lens and you need to remove that from your picture, or maybe you need to zoom in and highlight an important detail. If you click on the Aspect button, it gives you the option of either using the original aspect ratio of your picture or using Freeform, which allows you to change it any way you'd like. The only problem with that is that your picture may not fit into the space where you want to display it. Usually the better option is to choose one of the predefined frame dimensions they have for you. and then you can choose whether you want landscape or portrait. To reposition the photo, simply drag inside the grid, and don't forget to use your rule of thirds. Now we'll work with the straighten tool, so you'll need number 5521 for your photo. You'll notice how crooked it is if you look at the bleachers in the background. So we're going to use the same tool, the crop tool, and all you need to do is drag the dial up or down to tilt the photo to the left or to the right. Remember to use your grid on the photo as a guide. Now you'll need to find photo number 6466. We're going to work with the fourth tool, which is called filters, and those are similar to those filters you find on Instagram. Just do a little bit of experimenting. These filters basically just alter the color or lighting of a photo. Next, you'll need photo number 013. And we're going to be working with the adjust tool, which includes lots and lots of options. There's three main categories that come up by default: light, color, and black and white. And each of these categories has subcategories that you can access by clicking on the disclosure triangles. So we're going to collapse the color one and go back to light. You can use the main slider to adjust light as a whole, or you can go down to the subcategories and adjust the different options individually. And you can see the red, green, and blue channels changing above. To go back to the original settings, just press the reset button under the light category. This particular photo is underexposed on the bottom half. You miss a lot of the detail in the waves, so we're going to use the shadows feature, which will lighten up those underexposed areas but keep everything else the same. And you can see the before and after. Now let's grab photo number 006, and we're going to do the same thing only with highlights. In this picture, the foam in the sea has been kind of blown out because it's overexposed and you can't see the detail. So if we drag the highlight option to the right, it'll make it worse, it'll make it even brighter. But if you drag back to the left, you're going to be adding back in more shadows and texturing, and that's what we want. And it will leave everything else in the photo alone. Now find photo number 8718, and we're going to be working with saturation, white balance, sharpness, and denoising. Saturation has to do with the richness of color. So we're going to go back to the adjustment category, and this time we're going to close up the light option and go to color, and under color you have three options: saturation, contrast, and cast. If you drag saturation all the way to the right, the colors will actually start to glow, and if you drag all the way to the left, you desaturate it and end up with a black and white photo. So this setting is really more a matter of personal preference. Obviously you don't want the boy's skin tone to look orange. Now we'll work with the white balance tool. This is used when you shoot a picture and end up with a color cast on your photo due to lighting conditions, either because maybe it's too bright under sunlight, or maybe you shot in a room with fluorescent lighting or tungsten lighting and you don't like the color cast. This tool does not show up by default, so you'll need to go up to the Add button in the upper right-hand corner and select it. The goal of this tool is to allow you to tell the computer what you think is either white or neutral gray in the picture, and you select something that you know is supposed to be white or gray, and then the computer will make all the other adjustments accordingly. So we're going to choose this little white water drop in the boy's hair. You make sure you click on the eyedropper first, click it, and then it will adjust the coloring of your photo. Now let's zoom in and work on some detail. We're going to look at that 2x4 piece of wood that's in the picture, and you'll see the grain on the end of it. We're going to try to make that sharper. So we need to bring in some additional tools. We're going to bring in the sharpen tool and the denoise tool. The sharpen tool attempts to add more contrast between the light and dark colors to create more definition. You can experiment by dragging the slider left and right. It works better in some photos than others. Now I'll get the noise reduction tool, and what that does is remove speckles and certain other artifacts that show up when you zoom in on a picture, or maybe when you shoot the picture under low light conditions. And again, you just need to experiment by dragging left and right. It will definitely soften the picture and get rid of detail if that's what you want, or it will do the opposite. Now let's search for photo number 57. We're going to work with the retouch tool, which is always fun. You use the retouch tool to get rid of blemishes, shiny spots, anything else you want to get rid of. So in this picture, the girl has a strand of hair going across her face that we'd like to get rid of. So we're going to click on the retouch tool, which looks like a band-aid, and you have a slider that you can use to adjust the size of your circle. You want your circle to be just slightly larger than the hair strand so that it can sample the textures and colors on each side of the hair and then fill it in accordingly. You'll need to be careful that you don't smear. Sometimes you have to go back and touch up, especially when you get close to edges. Sometimes you get some weird artifacts showing up, and so you just have to start over. Remember that if you want to undo something, your shortcut is Command-Z. The last tool we'll learn about is the red eye tool. You will need photo number 6014 for this. And red eye occurs when the camera's flash travels to the back of the subject's eyes and illuminates the red blood vessels in the backs of their eyes. The red eye tool only appears in your panel if the program senses that the photo was taken using a flash. The first thing you'll want to do is zoom in on your subject's eyes. Then use your slider to adjust the circle so that it's just the size of your subject's pupils. Your other option is simply to use the auto button and the computer will do it for you. The last photo we'll work on is number 147540. It's an aerial shot of a landscape and it's very underexposed. So we'll go to the adjustments tool, and I adjusted the overall exposure to start off with, skipped the highlights, went to shadows, and drug that slider to the right so that you can see more detail in especially the dark left-hand corner. I also increased the brightness and contrast a little bit. That way you can see those houses better down in the left corner. And I increased the saturation just a little bit to give the colors a richer feel. You could also experiment with the sharpening and noise reduction tools as well. Be sure to press your M key to see the before and after. So there you have it. You've just learned about the basic editing tools in photos. If you're like me, you will probably use the crop tool, the retouch tool, and the shadows and highlights the most. You're now ready to work with your own photos.